Yeah, this is one more minute. I see a few more people rolling in here, so give them 1 second to catch up and we can get started. How about 12:01 we get started, just to be
All right, 12
respectful.
and 1 it will be. It's so funny in these meetings. Oh, yes, let's get started. Well, what does that mean exactly?
And it takes, I mean, if you have never used WebEx before or never used Zoom or any technology, it takes a second to install the app and takes a second to get used to where the audio is coming from, right? So people log in and usually it takes them a couple of minutes to get situated. So
Right. Gosh, I can't imagine anybody in this day and age that has not been utilizing these solutions on a regular basis, right? I mean, that's just our world now.
I agree. Yeah. This has been the time for a video to shine, right?
Yeah,
People have been talking about video for a long time, but this was really the time for it to come out.
right. And buying homes based on bandwidth that you can get in the neighborhood.
Yeah. All right, 12:02. I see most people are in already, so I think we're good to get started.
Let's do it. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. This is our next webinar in the how-to series. And by that, what we mean is that there's really one goal that we have for today, and that is if you can find just one thing that you can bring back into your center and implement, we will consider this a success. The sponsors for our event today are MindSight and Vitech. And let me introduce Kim Morgan, who's going to share some practical tips on WebEx. But I do want to introduce, Kim, before I turn it over to you, that we're going to change up this format a little bit today. Instead of death by PowerPoint, we're going to try and make this more conversational. So, you know, instead of us talking for 90% of the time, we're hoping that we can encourage each of you to submit responses to questions and perhaps even go on mic and we can engage in some conversation. All right, Kim.
Thanks, Vince. Yeah, before Clayton and Vince kind of start with the reason why you're here, we have a couple housekeeping notes. If you see the graphics on the slide, there's a chat function, there's a Q&A function. So if you have something that you need to say during the presentation, we really invite your comments, and you know, there's always going to be one of us taking a look at that. You can also raise your hand and you can provide feedback. And so that's that little bullhorn icon, megaphone, I don't know, that is on the bottom right of your screen. You can tell us if the presenter is going too fast or too slow, or you can use the checkbox to say yes. The X mark or the check mark is yes. The X is no. And, you know, if you are so inclined, you can also use one of the emoji that's on there. We like seeing those too. And then in addition to these functions that are during the presentation, we will have some question breaks in between some talking points or slides, and you will see a polling question pop up, and there'll be a countdown for you to go ahead and answer the question. So we encourage you to answer. And yeah, we really hope to make this very interactive and really get a great discourse going. So, you know, that being said, Vince, go ahead.
You can only use the nice emojis though. Just want to say.
Yeah. I think it's limited to only polite ones.
Okay.
So let's do our first question of the day. Kim, if you're ready. And so that question is, how many of you are working from home or have over 50% of your team members working from home? So simple yes or no. Sounds like something from Meatloaf.
So this is really great. answers are coming in. We've got about, I had set a minute for this one, but currently, as of right now, 13 people have said yes and 0 have said no. So I think it's safe to say 14 yeses. So I think we've got a good understanding of where everybody is right now.
Yes. Excellent. Excellent. I even did it myself. All right. So by way of introduction, this is Vince Fulgenzi. I am the CEO of Vitech. And we feel especially qualified to present on this topic because we virtualized our company over a decade ago. And at that point, it was fairly cutting edge. And it was really more of a reaction once we had implemented a phone system that allowed us to work remote. The next thing you know, there are very few people coming in the office, and I'm, as the CEO, I'm freaking out a little bit. But even I'm not coming in, so I'm looking at sales, and sales are happening, and looking at service and support tickets, and they're getting opened and closed properly, and customers are happy. So all of a sudden, we're looking at it going, why are we keeping this office open? Perhaps there's a better way to do this. And at that point, we were committed and virtualized the company, and we've been doing it for a long time. We've been able to accomplish our fiscal goals as well as deliver a terrific lifestyle to our team members. Let me also introduce Clade Jedi. Clade, would you please do an introduction?
Yeah, thanks, Vince. My name is Clade. I'm one of the principal consultants for call center here at Mindsight. I've been doing consulting for contact centers for over almost 16 years now, right, since 2004. And Mindsight is an IT consulting firm, but we're very focused on the customer experience and contact centers, right? Personally, I work from home 3-4 times a week for the last 12 years. So I have a good understanding of what it takes to run a call center from a technology perspective, but I also have the experience of working from home myself and then helping over a dozen customers in the last 3 months to make the transition to working from home full time.
Excellent. Thank you, Clade. So let's get into our topic today. We're going to look at the long-term impacts of working remote. So we know that the shutdown is not going to last forever. However, is working remote going to outlive that? How have our lives changed, and how is it going to continue to change? We're going to look at those potential realities in 3 specific areas. First off, professionally, what does it mean to us? From a personal standpoint, what is this new work-home balance that we're trying to achieve? And then lastly, from a social perspective, what does it look like building and maintaining relationships? So we know that, well, it's estimated that 60 to 70% of the workforce will not return to the typical Monday through Friday work week. And based on how many of us on this call are still working from home, I think that statistic may end up being a little bit low, particularly I think in the contact center arena. When we look at hiring, how do we go about hiring in this new remote model? What becomes attractive to a new hire? Is that big office in a major metropolitan city seen as a benefit, a place where someone would want to work because it has the cafeteria with low-priced food, or is it all of a sudden going to be viewed like the restroom at a bus station? You'll go in there if you have to, but you don't really want to go. So, is it possible that there will be other things that will be more beneficial to potential hirees? As an example, home office stipends, some form of compensation that can be expended, providing computers and cameras and other things that people need to work, and this will help to enable them. One of the things that we've identified for sure is that company culture is key in hiring, right, and retaining people. However, if we're not physically together, what does that company culture look like? And how do we go about creating a unique culture? So, some things that have come up as we've seen lunchtime workout classes via Zoom. And those are just a ton of fun. And also the happy hour, where, 4 o'clock, everybody goes to get a cocktail, and instead of drinking it out of a coffee cup, they're drinking it out of a real cocktail glass, because that's the point of it. We're enjoying each other's company in a different way than we've done in the past, but still trying to get that feeling of camaraderie that we are all in this together. Kim, can we do the next question?
Absolutely.
All right.
So, what are, go ahead.
Go ahead, Kim.
Sure. What are some ideas on how to demonstrate that we care about the people that we don't see every day? And, we're talking about the arena of birthdays of your coworkers or work anniversaries. We'd love to hear some of your ideas and things that maybe you might be doing today.
So please just go ahead and type in an answer. We'll continue talking and give you a chance to express your ideas. So we know that one of the key things in culture in a contact center had to do with celebrations and dress-up days and all kinds of fun things that the contact center would do. However, how do we do those? We can't really continue to do that because it's a completely different environment now with work at home. So, I'd like to hear some ideas from those of you that are leading these centers and see what your thoughts are. And perhaps that exchange of ideas, we can help each other come up with some good things.
Hey, Kim, have you gotten any answers yet? Because I'm having an issue typing in my answers. I wonder if other people might be having an issue.
We have 1 person in progress and 8 have, or 2 have come through.
Oh, perfect. Okay, it's just my side then. Okay.
Yeah.
Clay, you've got to get that internet pipe fixed at your house.
I know. Get those roots out of there.
Well, as we're waiting for those answers to come in, let's talk about the future of the road warriors. And, it's not looking good for the travel industry. We have a client that is a really large travel agent, and they're connected in with the airlines. And basically the industry is saying that June, July, it looks like they might be back to 15%, that's 15% of what they were at the end of the year. And that perhaps by the end of this year, they might be at 50%. So they're looking at significantly cutting back. The idea of jumping on an airplane and running out to California for a quick meeting, or to spend a couple days out in a branch office, or is just not something that we see happening, because people are learning new ways to do this. They're getting comfortable being on camera, getting comfortable with new ways to learn that are remote, and so the days of the road warriors may very well be numbered.
Yeah, just to add to that a little bit, Vince, Warren Buffett had his virtual conference this week, and he basically announced that he sold all of his airline stocks, right? And if you follow him for an amount of time, he was a big fan of the travel industry, and for him to actually sell all of his positions in the travel industry, it's basically supports the point he just made, right? That the demand for travel is going to be down in the long run.
Yes, yes. And keep in mind, he's already sitting on 130 billion, that's with a B,
Correct. Yeah.
dollars in pool. So it's not like he was selling it to generate cash for future investments. He's already got, I think, a third of his net worth, a third of Berkshire Hathaway's net worth in cash, positioned to be able to buy on the upside.
Correct. Yeah.
And he's not buying, so that means at least Buffett is saying we have not hit the bottom of the curve yet. And I think that's probably right. Kim, do we have some answers we can review?
We do. I'll just read a sampling of what we've received so far, but there's a trend going on, kind of about getting to know your team members. And so Valerie actually shared that she's attempting to know her team members a little better, by asking about friends or family, and asking specific questions about their family, just so she knows them as individuals, and she knows that they're valued. And then Heather responded that, show others you care by sending a text to check on them, a different format. It's less formal. I think that's a great way to show you care. You can take it off of kind of like your work laptop, and then it kind of, your phone is your personal device. So she's attempting to, show that it makes it more personal. And then lastly, we have, I'm so sorry, I might pronounce your name wrong. Lay Dene uh, says, virtual show and tell, daily quotes, remote self-awareness, and promoting resources that are already in place and showing gratitude. I think those are all great ideas.
Yes. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you all for those ideas. In talking with some recruiters getting prepared for today, one of the things that came up is when attracting people who are going to be working remote, in most cases, you will not meet them face to face. You will certainly do a video, but in a contact center, especially if you're not doing video with customers in the contact center, if you're, the most important thing is someone's phone presence. And so most of the interview is done over the phone. And then the reason someone wants to come to work for you and the reason someone wants to stay working is because of the relationship with their boss. And if it's a good boss, they want to stay. If it's a good team, they want to stay. If there's not that camaraderie and there's no esprit de corps, in a remote world, people can change really, really easily. It's not like, gee, they only live 10 minutes from work and it's tough to find another position there. In a remote world, somebody can work anywhere. They could be working for a company in California and living in Chicago or Kansas City. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I completely agree, Vince. And I think that first idea of having that touch base every day and having that continuous conversation. So even if it's like a hi or good morning via chat or something really small, but basically that puts in the spark out there to start the conversation, right? So whenever you put the spark out there to start a conversation, uh, that helps us, build relationships, right? But the first step is starting the conversation, right? Saying good morning via chat or saying hi, or even texting. I love the idea of texting because so far texting hasn't really taken a foothold in the business world, has really been limited to our personal interactions. And then when you when you make the jump from business to personal and you introduce texting, I think that by itself makes people feel more included, especially if you do a group text, right? Like some of my very close friends, like we talk via group text all the time, and that's the way we keep the conversation going, right? And I think those are great ideas.
Excellent. Clay, did you want to continue talk about some of the technology requirements?
Sure. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this point because I think when it comes to technology, there is a lot of requirements, and I also have about 4 or 5 predictions. And as I go through those predictions, I'm going to stop and turn it over to Vince to get his ideas. Vince has been in this world for a very long time, so I always find it very interesting to get his opinion on things, right?
Are you saying I'm old? Is that what you're saying? I think you're just funny.
That came out wrong. See, when you do this on video, things don't come out right. uh, so I mean, so there's a lot of people that believe that during a time of crisis, innovation really flourishes, right? We all kind of saw this during the 2008 financial crisis. Um, During that crisis, we saw a lot of startups actually start and replace some of the functions that banks were doing, right? Like we saw companies like Robinhood, we saw companies like Betterment and Venmo all started during that time. And literally, they were trying to fix issues that caused bigger banks to fail or have issues, right? So, it, and the only thing that changed is basically they improved the customer experience. A lot of these applications were 100% mobile, and they improved the customer experience by simplifying things. Also, during that time, one thing that we saw that's very different from this crisis was that a lot of organizations kind of applied the brakes and then avoided making any changes for a while, right? Um, if I remember correctly, it felt like those 3-4 months as we're going through the transition and getting the funds, the government funds approved, it like took forever to make a decision, and we saw that a lot of banks and a lot of companies kind of stopped making any changes. This time around, I feel like it's very different. Basically, we had to apply a work from home policy almost overnight. I just heard of T-Mobile. T-Mobile used to have a premise-based call center system, and they had 12,000 agents spread out throughout the country. And overnight, they had to convert them into a cloud platform, and they had to send all those agents at home. I mean, it got so bad they they had to discuss a lot of these arrangements with the governments in their state to make sure that they had enough time to actually make this transition happen, right? Switching over 12,000 agents in a week or 2 weeks, it's a major undertaking.
Yeah, and T-Mobile spent a fortune on their facilities. I was in one of their contact centers in Kansas City, and they had literally put a yellow brick road through the facility.
Wow.
And it was really cool. And of course, we had to skip through it when we walked. But I mean, they really spent a lot of money on their facilities, and right now they're empty. And I wonder if they're ever going to be even partially full again.
Yeah, and I know per fact, Vince, that they spend a lot of money on the customer experience in general. And if you ever done business with them, if you have ever called into their call center or use their mobile application, it really shows. It really shows that they care about the customer experience, it, and I think that's one of the keys to their success, right? So as we were going through this journey about 6-7 weeks ago, between our company and Vitech, we were fortunate enough to actually be in the front lines and work with over 30 contact centers and help them make this transition. One of the things that we noticed between a premise-based customer and a cloud-based customers was that it was much easier for a cloud-based customer to make the transition. Premise-based customers had to configure VPNs, ship phones and laptops, install software on the PCs, do remote desktop support help desks. It was very complicated. Cloud-based customers had it much easier. Cloud platforms, as we know, were actually built with remote work in mind. The only thing that is required is a working PC. Actually, as a matter of fact, you can even use a $200 Chromebook. You don't even need a PC. So the only thing you need is a web browser and a headset, just like the phone headset I'm wearing today. So actually, before I start talking about some of the predictions for the future and where this is going to go, I want to take a second here and put up the next polling question. It basically asks how many of you are using a premise-based phone system or a premise-based contact center versus a cloud-based contact center. And if you don't know the answer to the question, that's fine. A lot of this, especially if you're on the business side, you might not be aware of how your call center is built under the hood. But if you know, I would appreciate some feedback.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one because everybody on the call is working remote and managing their centers. And so it will be interesting to see what percentage of them have been able to get that done efficiently and effectively, well, functionally with premise-based versus made a quick transition to cloud.
All right, here comes the question.
Thank you, Kim.
It's like watching a score, like on a game.
You're enjoying this.
It's like a weird like throwback to video games, I think. So the question was, how many are using an on-premise solution? And there's about 30 seconds left, but of 14. Oh, Heather, we were on-premise until March, not anymore. So yay, cloud.
Wow.
That's awesome. And so we have 8 yeses, 4 nos, and 3 I don't knows, which is okay.
Yeah. So there are premise-based solutions that will adapt and adapt effectively to allow people to be remote. Obviously so.
Yeah, I would love to hear from Heather how the transition went, if she's comfortable sharing, maybe 1 minute or 30 seconds.
Heather, do you want to raise your hand if you feel okay um, uh, sharing with us, and I'll unmute you really quickly. Uh, she can't hear.
All right. So basically 66%, right? We had 8 yes and 4 no, so that's 2/3, 1/3.
Yes.
Yep. And that's right in line where the adoption curve we see for, and I'm very careful in talking about curves, right? That's like not a good word right now, but when I talk about the adoption curve, we kind of see that about 20% of the companies as of last year are already using some cloud-based product for their call center, right? And when I say call center, I usually mean phone system as well, right? So a lot of these cloud products are all in one. So that kind of brings me to my first prediction with the situation we're in today. In about 5 years, 90% of the contact centers will be running on a cloud-based platform. We're seeing traditional contact center vendors are already focusing most of their efforts in cloud products. And the benefits are there, right? From the ability to work from anywhere to no upgrades, not having to ever do an installation ever again, right? Built-in redundancy and not really having any on-site hardware to support. And nowadays, most companies are more open to the cloud idea, right? Since premise-based software was never intended for remote users. Nobody really wants to be tied down to phones, work laptops, and VPN connections. What do you think about that, Vince? Do you think that 90%, or do you think the number is going to be different in 5 years?
You know, Craig, you and I have battled on this one before, and cloud versus premise, haven't we?
I think the crisis is helping me out.
Yes, it is. I think that would probably happen even faster than the 5 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You know, the downside is I believe that the cloud is more expensive in the long run. Over the course of 5 years, it's about the same. It's a break even. But for organizations that keep the solutions for 7 to 10 years, cloud is more expensive. But I tell you, it's so much easier in a remote world um, that I think it will probably happen faster.
I agree. I agree. And that kind of leads me into prediction number two. Uh, we strongly believe that piecemeal platforms will stop to exist, right? And what do I mean by piecemeal platforms, right? So I'm talking about platforms where you need a different product for chat, you need a different product for contact center, your phone system is a different system, your email queuing is handled by a different company, your internal chat between coworkers is a different product, your WebEx meetings are done through a different company. I think those type of solutions are gonna go away. The new cloud-based platforms will have everything built in. They'll have business communications built in, file sharing built in, chat built in. Everything I just mentioned will be built in into a single product. The days of having to integrate 3 or 4 different products to collaborate are over. From a training perspective, the days of having to train your agents to use 4 or 5 different software for customer service and collaboration are completely gone, I think. Um, there's still a lot of customers out there that are doing this. Just 2 weeks ago, I was on the phone with a customer for a pre-sales screening, and I was asking the standard questions I usually ask: what are you using today? What do you do for this? What do you do for that? And just this one customer, they were using Cisco for their phone system. They're using Genesys for their contact center. They're using Microsoft Teams for their internal chat. And they're using Zooms for meetings. They're using Calabrio for their quality management and recording. And I just didn't want to dig any further, just because the more questions I asked, the more products they brought to the table, right? Uh, Too many products, too many things that could go wrong. I think in the future, cloud all in one, out of the box, it's going to be the way to go. And literally, like Vince said at the beginning, if you only take one thing away from this presentation and you are serious about creating a work from home platform that works in the long term, the foundation should be cloud based, all in one software. What do you think about that, Vince? Do you think that's going to come true? I know we've been talking about that for a while, but I still feel that the major companies are still only focusing on one area.
Yeah, you know, that's a tough one because there are a number of best of breed solutions where they really have invested a ton of money in the software and they do some very unique things specific to a certain vertical. And so that's a tough one. I could see where that might be the case for a large percentage, but it's like mainframes. When the PC came out, they said, okay, mainframes are dead. Nobody's going to have them. There's still a lot of mainframes out there because there's certain situations where you need that kind of power and processing. So will it go away completely? No. Will it be 90%? Will it be 80%? I don't know, but it'll be a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's still going to be some businesses out there. They need the best of breed of everything, and just because of that, they're going to either build it themselves or just continue to use point solutions just because they offer, like you said, the best of breed, right?
Yeah.
That kind of brings me into this next point, right, where I strongly believe that business communications and contact center software will go mobile, right? They'll move into smartphones or mobile devices more and more. And if you think about it, the smartphone has already replaced a lot of the stuff that we used to carry around, right? Like, you had an iPod, you had the phone, you had the calculator. A lot of stuff that we used to do with the point solutions, point hardware, the smartphone has already replaced. But I think where it has really shined is becoming our main hub of all the interactions we have with each other and the outside world. Um, so just a quick example to basically explain what that means, right? So I have younger kids. My kids are still younger, so we still pay for daycare. And because of that, we have an FSA account and we have a dependent care account. So a dependent care account is very similar to an FSA account, but you can only use it for daycare, right? And basically the benefit is that it allows you to pay for daycare with pre-tax money. And the main thing here is that if you don't claim the money within a year, you lose them. So just 3-4 weeks ago, I think I got an alert on my phone that was the last day to file the claim for that dependent care account. So I just panicked ahead. It was like 9 o'clock in the morning. I just gotten up and still having my breakfast, and I was just like, oh, I got to file this dependent care, and the daycare is closed, and I didn't know what to do. So just from that point on, the next 10 minutes, on my kitchen table, on my phone, I open up the dependent care account app, check the balance, send a text message to the daycare provider, and ask her to email me a statement, and then also place the call to the call center for the daycare to basically ask for an extension, see whether that was even possible. In the next 10 minutes, I received a statement from my daycare provider, kind of saved the statement on my phone, and filed a claim via the app, right? And then finally, I took the statement and sent it to my accountant for tax purposes. So all of that happened in less than 15 minutes, all through my phone. So if you think about that and you think about the way you'd have done that 10, 15 years ago, I guarantee you there would have been way more steps involved in there and way more devices. So I think that in a similar fashion, call center agents and remote workers are going to have to switch through different apps on their phone and kind of handle customer calls, search CRM records, and then provide assistance where it's needed. And most of it will be available because AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, I think will do most of the mundane tasks, right? So if you think of how many times the agents have to switch screens and take notes and write into CRMs of what happened in a call or an interaction, I think all of that is going to go away because AI is going to transcribe the call, comprehend the call, understand the call, and come up with a summary and put that summary in the CRM. It also is going to offer assistance to the agents in real time. And then it's going to handle like the most mundane tasks like appointment scheduling and like random tasks that computers can do, like answering basic questions. So yeah, I strongly believe the new generation of agents they're already mobile native, right? Because they grow up with mobile devices, and they will want to work out of a mobile device more than want to work out of a laptop.
Clayton, I'm so glad you brought that up because I agree with you on that 100%. Many of the futurists are talking about, job stealing robots and to be careful of that. Elon Musk is one of them. And artificial intelligence is going to strip out all of the calls. Artificial intelligence and machine learning will strip out all of the easy calls, and what's left is workforce super agents. Not that there will ever be a time when there's no agents, but the complexity will be significantly higher on the interactions because it won't just be phone calls, but calls, emails, chat, text, whatever media.
I agree. I think the agents that are gonna be left are gonna be true knowledge workers. And I don't think AI will take away jobs per se. I think we just have different types of jobs. And then customer service will change based on what the AI is offering to the agents that are left. Uh, So I'm almost done. I have two more predictions, and I'm going to go through this really quickly because I know I'm going over on time. So I feel that more people stuck at home and everybody having these voice assistants like Google and Alexa. Uh, I think these voice assistants are going to become a new channel for customer service. If you think about these devices, they already have built-in artificial intelligence. They already have advanced speech recognition, and in real time, they can search the web, they can search knowledge bases, they can integrate with different databases, and they have the ability to escalate cases to real agents when needed. And frankly, I've predicted this 3 years ago, and I'm kind of surprised that companies haven't jumped on this bandwagon to make that happen yet, because when I'm sitting at home and I need support and I am too lazy to go type in into a web browser and do a web search or place a call into an 800 number, I can be in the kitchen cooking dinner and talking to my Google Voice device, because I don't have to use my hands. I don't have to like stop what I'm doing, right? So I think this is coming. It's just a matter of time before we get there. Any feedback on that, Vince?
I agree with you.
All right, perfect. And then finally, if we've been in the contact center industry for a while, one thing that has always surprised me is that how many reports and how many productivity tools and quality management tools we have available for agents, right? And I think that these productivity tools and reporting, advanced reportings are gonna make the way to other jobs, right? With more and more people working from home, managers are going to need to have more visibility into their employees and what they're doing and how they're performing. Um, my prediction is that contact center software, especially screen recording, call recording, and productivity monitoring, is going to make its way into the general business user workforce. And it's basically, we're going to see a bunch of startups as well. So basically, we're already seeing this. We're already seeing companies keeping track of the screens and keeping track of how long you spend on a screen and trying to give you reports on how workers spend their day. But nobody knows better than call center managers and call center companies on how that on how those reports work, right? So I think there's going to be a bleeding of those productivity tools into the general business workforce. How about that, Vince?
I'm in complete agreement with you on that, which really leads right into the next topic.
Yep, and I'm down on my side, so.
Yes, as we talk about this change where we're monitoring throughout the organization the work that's being completed. So true business process automation. A purchase order going through is shown as it's routed. A customer service request is not just a call, the interaction, but if there's actually things that have to be processed associated with that. In a higher education, a student registering for a class and how that follows through, including the ongoing, not just, the financing of it. So if a student is getting a loan or however they're paying for it, but making sure that all of that is tracked in detail, where is the ball at this point? So as we think about that, and we have remote workers where And now in a contact center, it's a little bit different because we do need people to log on at certain times, break at certain times, and that's what workforce management does. There are lots of other positions where it's not really necessary that someone be there from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., but their work can be shifted around. Certain creative jobs and engineering and, lots of other positions. So what I anticipate happening is that compensation changes from, instead of being paid hourly, which requires tons of middle management, if people are paid based on the work. So in other words, imagine contact center agents paid based on questions answered for clients, or sales made, or service issues resolved, installations completed, CSAT, happy customers. So with that in place, the change in compensation would then be for a manager who might be paid on the results of their team rather than a salary. And in that way, there's much greater freedom. It's maybe a little bit scary, but there's much greater freedom. Kim, do we have a question on that?
We do. The next question is, how would you feel about changing your compensation to be largely based on performance, either an individual team or a team that you manage? I'm actually going to open that question up right now, and it's multiple choice. There are three choices.
Excellent.
While we wait for that, Vince, do you think that there's going to be a gig economy or an Uber economy for call center workers?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I remember reading a prediction about that decades ago. Are we all going to end up being employees of Manpower Inc., where we're just zipped in and we're moving from company to company throughout the course of a day? I think that could happen, but there's a certain element of people wanting some security and just consistency. Whereas going from place to place to place it's hard on people, I think. So possibly, but that's still a ways off, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
What do you think, Cleve?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think people still want to have that comfortable level of, having a full-time job, and a lot of the call centers we work with, they require quite a bit of training before they can take calls, right? So it's going to be interesting. Once AI gets into full gear and starts doing a lot of the tasks and assisting agents, whether that training time is going to go down, and therefore you can basically have somebody watch like 4 hours of videos and jump in and take calls, right? So I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Yeah, you're right about that. And being paid on production gives people who are really excellent performers a chance to earn more income than they would have achieved just based on salary and a small amount of bonus.
I agree. I mean, yeah, you hear people complaining about Uber all the time, but I also read an article about 6 months ago where some guy was making over $100,000 working as an Uber driver, right? So.
Well, I missed the chance to respond to the poll. Dang it. What do we have?
So the results are in. We actually have, oh, where did it go? We have 10 saying maybe and 3 saying bring it on. The sooner the better. So I think
Wow,
it's a
that's
very
great.
positive, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's right in step. When I talk with CEOs about that, they are very positive about what that could do for their organization. All right, personal. So first, in this new world, right, let's look at what's really important and start with assessment of a home. And I've spent some time talking with realtors. So, the environment when we started remote work and combine that with kids that are now doing remote school. So you've got, in your house, 2 or 3 kids in online classes plus 2 spouses, both trying to work. Perhaps all of a sudden that open floor plan that was, that you picked up so that you could have large family gatherings and parties, which, it's hard to say when that's going to come back exactly. Maybe that's not as important as, separations with rooms where people can have a chance to focus and concentrate more easily. Also, in thinking about location, if you're not going into the office, is that location that makes it a 20-minute commute really that important? And so, one of the realtors had commented how they were listing a home that was out in the country, and their client had purchased it because that's really where they wanted to live, and they would commute into work every day. However, now with no commute and the internet out there is almost non-existent, that was a huge problem for them. And so they literally had the house up for sale, and were going to move into a neighborhood where there was better connectivity. One of the things that I think will happen as we go forward is it won't just be the connectivity, but it'll be access to other things. So, for example, now there are places where you can have things delivered from Amazon same day, right? As we go forward, perhaps that'll be something delivered from Amazon in 20 minutes. And just, location based on other priorities. For some people, it may be, well, I'm willing to put up a little bit less, but I can live at the lake. And, at the end of the workday, go down to the dock and enjoy that. So different things will be important to different people. All we can say is for sure it's going to change. In terms, there was a CEO that I spoke to and asked, what were the 3 things that you thought were most important now? And the first was, well, people really need to get comfortable being on camera. And for many people, they've never done that before. And it's weird that people would have that concern because in a face-to-face meeting, you walk in and it's not like you're shy and don't want to meet face-to-face, but yet you put that same person where they're going to be on a camera. It's like, oh, I've never done that before. It's new. It's different. I don't know if I like it. And then the second thing was a new way to learn, where this remote learning is very different than sitting in a classroom. And everyone has to adjust to that. The last one was kind of funny, and it was learning how to live with the people that you love. and it's true. There are lots of things, lots of issues that weren't important before that are important now because we're so close to our family members. Whereas in the past, we would be gone, 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, 5 days a week. And yet if we're all there together now, it's different. And Sunday morning this week, they were interviewing a couple that had worked together for 20 years, and they asked how did they feel about it, and the man said, well, I've realized that my wife chews entirely too loud. Oh my goodness. Kim, do we have another question on this? I can't remember if we did this one or not.
We do. Is actually what are the aspects of your next home which you find important? And so that was touching back on the connectivity and things like that. So I will open that up. You can choose. We have a couple of choices, and you can choose 3 that are most important to you.
Oh, I love it. So what are the aspects? dedicated private space for your work or school. I mean, you could pick any three. Cool. Internet connectivity, reliable and fast, safety and security, proximity to school and work. You know, that's a huge one. So many people will choose a home based on the school district. But is that school district necessarily as good when it's remote? I don't know. Maybe it is, but maybe not. Neighborhood amenities, you know, for many people it was being on a golf course or having a pool or a lake or whatever is around the house. Convenience to shopping and restaurants. Yeah, so much for that right now, huh? Although to go is still pretty good. Although I do have friends that they don't even like to do that. They prefer just cooking at home, which, I don't know, if you can do it, God bless you. But we certainly enjoy that occasional takeout meal. And then the architectural style of the home. For many people, that was hugely important, being a modern home or a Victorian or whatever. We've still got a little over a minute. Let's move on, and then we'll look at the results of that one as we continue to go through, because I see we are starting to run a little bit late. So, friendships. How do we keep people close, but not too close, right? You know, what are the effective means of keeping those relationships tight and promoting, you know, not just, well, certainly it's keeping existing relationships, but how about new friends? How do you go about making new friends in this remote world that we're in? There are some significant challenges there. And for many people, they're really starting to feel isolated. They're not getting out to the gym with their friends the way they'd really like to, and they miss it horribly, and it's that social aspect. Certainly going to the bar and the restaurant, you know, to meet up with people, that's changing significantly. In the United States, you know, many of the places that we used to frequent, the sports bars where there are so many, you know, pages and pages of items with 20, 30 people working in the kitchen and hundreds of people in the restaurant, and that was how they make profit. Odds are it's going to be a long time before we see that again, if ever. And so perhaps the restaurant model changes to be more like, I don't know, for any of you who've gone to Europe, where the restaurants are smaller and there's maybe one wait staff or two, and there's just a couple of people in the kitchen, and there's maybe 6 items on the menu. And they're all excellent and outstanding, but it's very different. It's a much smaller, more intimate environment, and not like what we are accustomed to. When we think about walking into a common area, one of the things that the airlines are looking at is entering through one door, exiting through another. So, you know, in other words, maybe you enter at the back of the plane and go to your seat, and you exit through the front of the plane. In a restaurant, as we go in, there could very well be things similar to that, but also temperature scanners and other things. One of the things we encountered recently was looking at your O2 level and putting a sensor on a finger to determine if your O2 level is adequate, that low O2 could be an indication that something's going on. Kim, let's look at the results.
Sure. Actually, we had a couple people say that they can only pick one. So basically, what we have is a priority of what's in your next home.
Okay.
4 said dedicated private space to school and work, and I could not agree more. I hope you guys can't hear my screaming toddler in the background. We had 4 people say internet connectivity, 1 person security and safety, 1 person neighborhood amenities, and 1 person convenience to shopping.
Wow. Yeah, look at how that's changed. And that will be reflected in the market as we go forward. There's absolutely no question about it. So, great feedback. Thank you all. As we look at then going forward with family gatherings, and I don't know about you, but I'm already thinking about when are we going to get our family together and how is that going to look? How is that going to work? You know, in every family, there is that, you know, the matriarchs and patriarchs and the young people coming in can't take a risk on infecting them. So how does that work? How do we get together for the holidays and things? You know, the last holiday we had, our family did everything via Zoom meeting, and we shared that. And while it was fun and interesting, boy, it's not the same as physically being there. But yet, you know, these things are real, and infection of at-risk people or even infants is a major concern. What happens to the greetings? You know, how do we move forward with what used to be, you know, here's the handshake, and now that's pretty much taboo. So, you know, there are various people that, you know, have chosen different things, whether it's the fist bump or the elbow bump or you know, the namaste, just a head nod, you know, hi, how's it going? And that acknowledges someone's presence. We see in many cases these things are now much more socially acceptable than they were. One of the things that was interesting over the weekend is something called skin hunger, where, you know, in the past, people would go out and on a, you know, if you're a hugger on a regular basis, you were hugging different people that you would meet throughout the day. If you haven't seen them in a while, you know, you'd give them a hug. Well, now there's this skin hunger where we literally want to have that type of connectivity with those around us, and our bodies need it. So it's, you know, good reason for, you know, maybe some additional skin time within our homes for the people that are there that we're living with on a regular basis.
Hey, Vince, since we're over our time, can we cover the closing slides and then we can have a discussion for the people that want to stay on? I just want to make sure we're keeping in mind that some people might have a hard stop here.
We are there, Clay. So thank you for keeping me on track, although we are over. So thank you all. So everyone, thanks for attending today. We hope that you enjoyed this and got a lot out of it. Our next session is going to be a contact center leaders panel discussion. And that we anticipate being much more open than even what we did today. Today we moved the needle a little bit. Next time it's going to be moving significantly and much more open. The contact center leaders that we've got lined up with, we don't have the ability just right now to announce all of the names because we have to have things signed and whatnot. But there will be a combination of centers that are smaller, you know, 20, 25 agents, some in the, you know, middle size range, and then some very large. So a blend of all of that. And what's always interesting to me is how the centers have really the same issues. It's just a matter of the size. We're also offering with this a free remote assessment of your contact center. And Clayton and I will be happy to work with you on setting something up if you think we can be a benefit in helping you. Are there any questions or comments? We can open up the mics if people would like to submit some questions or make comments.
So we've got, yeah, we've unmuted everybody. So if there's anything anybody wants to say, please feel free to share.
And there's no cussing. You can't do any cussing. Wow. It's quiet.
I was just gonna say, Vince, when you were talking about the handshake earlier, it's kind of interesting how the handshake came about and became part of our, norms that we do every day. It basically came as a way to show people that you weren't carrying a knife, right? So you basically extended your hand open to show them that you
Really?
weren't carrying a knife. Yeah.
Oh, isn't that cool?
Yeah. We can retire that habit though.
Yes, but now we're all concealed carry anyway, so it doesn't matter. Well,
All right.
I guess we don't have any questions. We're a little bit over on time. So we certainly appreciate everyone taking your lunchtime with us and hope that you got benefit out of it. Again, if you can just get one thing that you can implement from this today, then we'll consider it a success. Thank you all, and we'll see you next time.
All right, thanks everyone. Appreciate it.
Bye now.
All right, bye-bye.